Hi, this is Brian Sapient from RationalResponders.com, the Rational Response Squad, and I am here with Lori Lipman Brown from the Secular Coalition for America. Thanks for speaking with me.
Thanks for having me.
So, I'm curious, could you tell the YouTube audience what the Secular Coalition for America does?
The Secular Coalition for America has a two-pronged mission. It's to protect and strengthen our secular character of government as the best guarantee of freedom for all, and to increase the visibility and respectability of non-theistic viewpoints. So on the first part of that, I lobby in Congress for separation of church and state as the non-theistic voice. And on the second part, I try to do as much media and public appearances and things like this to get the word out that non-theists are a part of the American fabric, and we should be included, and the idea is that we should not be given the same level of respect or trust as any other group are just wrong.
And what exactly does a lobbyist do?
I will be I look at various bills and how they affect the guarantee of separation of church and state, and where there's a bill proposed that threatens separation of church and state, for example, an amendment last year to allow religious discrimination in public programs, then I will go into those offices, sometimes on my own, sometimes with other folks from other organizations who agree with us, and speak to them about why this needs to be voted against and try to convince them of our side. And then sometimes we're also proposing legislation.
Now, can you give us an example of anything specific in terms of legislation that you guys have been working on in the recent past?
Well, there are two bills that didn't go anywhere in the 109th Congress that we're really hoping will move in the 110th Congress. One deals with pharmacists who've been refusing to fulfill legal prescriptions because of their religion. And of course we want that to stop.
Those are the morning after pills or the abortion?
Yeah, it's almost always about birth control.
Okay.
And then the other one is the sex ed when it's federally funded. There's a bill to try to, I think it's called Prevent Abortion Bill, it's something like that this time around, and it's to require that if you are having federally funded sex education programs in the schools, they ought to be fact-based, whereas currently there's misinformation being given out with our federal dollars. There's theological doctrines about women being submissive and regarding sex inside and outside of marriage, that sort of thing.
Is this something to do with like the abstinence-only education?
Right.
Okay. Do you know if that's still official CDC policy? I know Bush came in and changed the CDC policy so that...
As far as I know, it hasn't changed. What did change was when this became an issue last year, and by the way, this is one of those issues where it's not just a secular coalition, but a large a number of allied groups have been working on this far longer than I have. A lot of the pressure that's been put on has at least resulted in biblical tracts being taken out of some curriculum that was being paid for with our government dollars. Things about the Bible telling women to listen to their husbands, things like that.
Now, what are you guys doing to try to help with the faith-based initiatives that are going on right now? So much of our dollars are going to religion. Atheists obviously don't want that.
This year we're working with, again, a number of groups to get Congress to start investigating, to do some oversight and require some accountability. A book came out last year by David Quo called Tempting Faith, and if we're to believe what's in his book, and he was pretty high up in the Office of Faith-Based Initiative, then grants were not being given or are not being given based on who the best grant applicant is. If it's a Christian group, they get the money. If it's a non-Christian group of any kind, they don't. And then once they get the money, there are supposed to be rules that come with our federal dollars. When someone gets our federal dollars, they're not supposed to be able to discriminate in hiring. They're not supposed to be able to proselytize the people who come for the social services. And yet there's been no review of whether they're doing that with our dollars. So we're pushing for oversight, accountability, and once we see what comes out of investigations, perhaps just getting rid of the whole thing.
Now, the Secular Coalition for America is a very unique organization. It's now 8 organizations working together?
Yes.
Okay. So it's now 8 organizations working together. And what can people do to help you guys as a whole?
It's very important that they go on to www.secular.org and sign up for the e-alerts. When an important vote is coming up in Congress, I will alert people if they happen to be in a particular district where someone is on a committee that needs to do an important vote, or if it's in the whole Congress that they should contact their particular person. I'll give them sample emails, and they can either use the exact email or they can adapt it to their voice and their concerns. But it's very important that they hear from all of us all over the country. Very important that the constituents in all of these districts let their elected officials know, if they're non-theist, that, I'm a non-theist and you represent me too, if they start hearing their Congress member use rhetoric about how everyone should believe in a God and that sort of thing.
Well, thanks so much for talking to us. The Rational Response Squad, of course, proudly supports the Secular Coalition for America. You can check them out at secular.org and visit us at rationalresponders.com. Thanks for tuning in.